All right. Thanks everyone for joining. As you're well aware, this is our first Apex office hours, and things might be a bit rough, could be a train wreck or could be great. And we just wanted to use this as an opportunity to bring everybody together, kick off this program, define it a little bit, and give a schedule for what's coming in the future. Okay. Just as some guidelines here, I realize that many people are turning their video on and unmuting, which is cool. However, it'll probably degrade the bandwidth, and we encourage people to keep the video off and keep yourself muted. It'll just conserve bandwidth and make the experience better for everybody else. I realize the Apex team, though, they should remain video on and the like. This is the whole Ask Me Anything. So I said about asking questions in chat, right? So if you have questions, people post questions in advance, which we're going to go through, but feel free to also ask questions in chat that you want someone to cover, and David will be moderating this, and we'll interject them here and there. I will say that the response has been completely overwhelming. We have far more questions than we'll ever be able to get through today. We tried to pick and choose those which have broad applicability. And in some cases, we got very specific questions like something's not working when I build this feature and, I stand on one hand. That's probably not the best type of question for this forum. And so I encourage you to ask it maybe on the Slack channels on apex.world or on the OTN discussion forum. Okay. So this is the inaugural Ask Me Anything. And we did this for, I think, Apex 5.0 or 5.1. We had a Google Hangout and we had an Ask Me Anything. And we are using this as part of this program that Stephen Forrestine has created, the office hours, which really is covering many people in the database division on many topics. So not only is there an Apex office hours, there's office hours for multi-tenant, for Exadata Express Cloud Service, for really many database topics, SQL and PL SQL. And we encourage you to attend the other office hours because really an Apex developer is an Oracle database developer, and there's lots that you can learn and many questions that you can ask. Here's the upcoming schedule. And we have this planned out right now through February 2019. And we wanted to alternate between a very general beginner topic and something very specific. So, like I said, we have this mapped out through February. We're going to change some of the times so that we accommodate Asia and Denis Savenko in Russia, and it won't be all at this time. So we want to accommodate the global community. And as well, we don't know everything. So if there are topics which you don't see on our schedule or things that you would want us to specifically address, please suggest it at any time. Just some quick announcements. I'm sure everybody on this call knows. We released Apex 18.1 in May, and there's been thousands of downloads and thousands of upgrades. And I will say that the team did a magnificent job on this. It is probably one of the most stable releases of Apex I've ever seen in terms of upgradability and backward compatibility. Usually when we have an Apex release, some in the Apex community, they like to stumble over each other to see who can find the most egregious bug, and that hasn't happened yet. So I encourage you to try it on apex.oracle.com or consider upgrading. Also, the team, really led by Shakib Rahman, spent a lot of time on the new apex.oracle.com, and we want this to be the go-to place for everything Apex. So when you're talking to a CIO or a manager and they want to find any information about Application Express, we want it to be addressed on this beautiful new static site for Apex, right at apex.oracle.com. And again, if there are things which you think we should add or are lacking, let us know, please. David and I were here at Oracle headquarters for a number of meetings. And one of the opportunities we had yesterday was to give an Apex presentation to all the database product managers. And I want everyone to know this business of asking people to raise their hands and be enthusiastic. I want you to know we don't discriminate. We impose it on our own Oracle employees. And there are numerous VPs in the audience here, and they willingly did it. What we would like to do is introduce the Apex product development team. We really wanted to use this as an opportunity to introduce you to all of the people who make Apex great and give a little background about themselves. Not to put our team on the spot, but I thought what would be an icebreaker rather than have people say hi, which is kind of corny. I would ask our respective team members, what year did you join Oracle? Where were you born? And where do you live now? And I will say of all these pictures here, I'll give a shout out to Christina Cho, who's the first picture there. She looks like the chairwoman of the board and the person who runs the whole show by her picture. So well done, Christina. Speaking of Christina, Christina is a principal member of technical staff on the Apex development team. Christina's been with us a long time. Is responsible for many things in Apex, and I would say one of the most notable is interactive reports. And so to put Christina on the spot, what year did you join Oracle, Christina? Where were you born and where do you live now, please?
So just like Joe said, I joined Oracle in 1998, 20 years back. I was born in Seoul, Korea, South Korea, and now I am actually working in Western Virginia, Oracle office.
Okay, next up is Hillary Farrell, and Hillary has also been with the team for a long time. Hillary's worked on a large number of areas of Apex. Most notably and most famous, I would say, is the Oracle Jet Chart integration. Hillary, would you like to give us the three answers? When did you join Oracle? Where were you born and where do you live now?
Cool. So I started in 98 as well, but actually left towards the end of 99, went to Australia for a while and returned in 2001. Born in Dublin in Ireland and still here.
Next, do we have Sharon Kennedy? Is she on the line? So I think Sharon's probably been at Oracle even longer than I have. I started in 1996. Sharon was with Oracle Consulting, and she works on numerous projects, works for Mike Hichwa, and contributes not only to Apex, to package applications, but you see Live SQL and many things related to Oracle Cloud. Alan Sitterson works on the package apps and as well as special projects, works under Shakib Rahman. And Alan, would you like to answer the three obligatory questions?
Sure. I started with Oracle in 2002 of this month, and I was born in Illinois and I live in Colorado Springs. I've lived all over the place because my dad was in the military, and I have the best view in the world now that I live in Colorado Springs. I'll share my view. There we go. Everybody can see.
Thanks, Alan. And for those who don't know, Alan thinks he's a real comedian. No, really, he's a real comedian.
I am a real comedian. I'll be performing at Sushi High in Denver tonight.
So Anthony, unfortunately, was a bit ill this week. He is based in Plymouth, England, and he also came from Oracle Consulting, and I think that he joined Oracle 2004, 2005, something like that. Anthony is also responsible for many things, probably most notably, he worked recently with John Snyder's and others on the interactive grid, and he architected dynamic actions as well. Bob is an extraordinary graphic designer. He collaborated with Shakib on Font Apex, and he's we reach out to Bob for anything that needs tasteful artistic design. And Bob, would you like to answer the three obligatory questions, please?
Sure. I joined Oracle in 2001, but joined the Apex team in 2014. I was born in Washington, D.C., and I live in Reston, Virginia now.
Next, we have Karsten Zarski. And Karsten is one of the newest members of the Apex development team, but we've known and worked with Karsten for years. I've known him personally for, 12 or 15 years. And most recently, Karsten collaborated with Patrick and others on the REST integration.
Yeah, hello. I was born in southwest of Germany, city close to Trier. And I joined Oracle in 2001, spent 15 years in the German pre-sales organization, then changed to the Apex team 2 years ago. And today I'm living in Munich in Germany.
And who would ever know that you got your start in banking before coming to this?
And that's actually true. So right after school, I worked in a bank for a few years, then went to university, and that was the start of my IT career.
Next, we have Chaitanya Karatamati, and Chaitanya is a product manager based out of Hyderabad, I believe. Oh, sorry, I stole your thunder, Chaitanya. And he's an essential part of our product management team. If you really like the latest Apex curriculum that's out on GitHub and downloadable by anyone on the planet, that's all Chaitanya's handiwork. Chaitanya, take it away, please.
Sure, Joel. So I joined Oracle in July 2005, and I'm born at 200 miles down south Bangalore, the Silicon Valley of India. And I lived most part of my life in Bangalore and also in other major cities in India, but I moved to Hyderabad a couple of years ago. So I live in Hyderabad, right?
Next, we have the illustrious Dr. Christian Neumuller, who is responsible for many things at Apex. Last night when we were developing these slides, we had security, and that seems it just seemed to undersell what he brings to the table in terms of all of the security features and assessment in Apex as well. So like everybody else on the team, Christian touches many areas of Apex.
Thank you. So I joined in 2011, and I grew up on a small farm in Austria near the Czech border. And currently I'm working from Vienna, and I'm not a real doctor.
In my mind, you will always be a real doctor. Okay. Next, we have David Peak. David is our Apex product manager. David works on many things as well. One of the things that David and I were recently talking about yesterday with the EBS team is Apex and the Business Suite integration. And David, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's David Peak. I was born in Australia. In fact, started with Oracle in 1993 in Australia. Then I moved to New Zealand with Oracle. And I've actually been in the US for 20 years, and I live in Denver, Colorado these days.
Thanks, David. Next up is Jason Straub. Jason has been with the team a long time. Jason has worked a lot on web services, the cloud services, most recently working on the integration of Apex with the Oracle Database application containers. Jason, take it away, please.
Yes, so I joined the team in 2000, so right after the turn of the millennium. And I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, and now I live in Upper Arlington, Ohio. And now I work in Dublin.
Next up is John Snyders. John actually has been with Oracle for a while and just sent an email. I looked up the email the other day of when John was working for another team and said, hey, what you guys are doing is pretty interesting, and I've always appreciated this type of metadata-driven application development. And here we are with John. John, would you like to say a few words, please, where you're from?
Yeah, I was born in Toronto, Canada, and I now live in Lexington, Massachusetts, and joined Oracle in 2008, but didn't join Apex team until 2012.
And John, I have to say, the Star Trek phaser effect over your voice is in full bloom today, okay?
Microphone not working again.
Yeah, you sound like you're from Star Trek.
I hate when that happens.
Next up is Kyle Hu. He works for Shakib Rahman. We've also known Kyle for many years, and he joined the Apex team relatively recently. Kyle is a master and works with Shakib on Universal Theme and JavaScript. And Kyle, would you like to answer the 3 obligatory questions about yourself, please?
Hi, this is Kyle Hu. I was born in China. I joined Oracle in 2007 as a member of the iTech pre-sales team in China, Shenzhen. And I'm currently live in Virginia, Fairfax, Virginia. I'm in the same office with Christina and Shakib. I recently started promoting Apex in some China social media, WeChat. So hopefully I brought a dozen Chinese developers in this meeting. So hi.
Next up is Mark Zeefs, and Mark manages the development of Apex overall, and which he's doing a masterful job on. And Mark as well has been with the team for a very long time, almost since the beginning. And Mark, would you like to answer our three obligatory questions, please?
So, hello everyone. I was born in Germany, joined Oracle in 1998, joined the Apex team in 2002, and I moved to New York 20 years ago.
When we were at Kscope, I said you were originally from Hamburg, Germany, and you gave the look like that wasn't accurate. Where do you say you're from?
I was born in Melle, which is near Osnabrück in the northern part of Germany, but lived most of my life near Frankfurt.
Next up is Mike Hitchwa, and I'll just say a few words. Mike is the genius behind Application Express. It has been his design and motivation and architecture and passion. And as well, I'll say about Mike, I'm probably going to denigrate other managers I worked for before, but every other manager almost I've ever worked for, they came in after me, they left before me, and I always just work circles around them. And Mike is the only manager I've ever had who consistently works more than me every day. I've worked for Mike since 1999, and he's not stopping. So he's the lightning rod for not only Apex, but many things across the database division. And sorry to put you on the spot, Mike, but when did you join Oracle? Where were you born and where do you live now, please?
I joined in 1988, just had my 30th anniversary. I was born in Connecticut, and I now live in Bethesda, Maryland.
Thanks, Mike. And congratulations on your 30-year anniversary. Next up is Patrick Wolf. Patrick was in the Apex community before he joined the Apex team, and Patrick is masterful at many subjects across Apex. The one thing that I glossed over from Dr. Neumuller, which it also seems to be ever present in Austrians, is I think Patrick's favorite pastime is refactoring. Patrick, would you like to tell us when you joined Oracle?
Sure. Joined Oracle in 2009 and was born in Gmunden, Austria. That's close to where the Sound of Music is located. So if Americans, if you know Sound of Music, that's close. Currently live in Vienna, Austria. With Christian, I'm the Austrian development center in the Austrian development.
Next up is Shakib Rahman, and Shakib, along with this team, they are the creators and the genius behind Universal Theme and many other things. Shakib, would you like to tell us about yourself, please?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I was born in India, and I joined Oracle as an intern in 2006, actually around this month as well. I've actually been working with Bob, Vlad, Alan from way back then. We were all on the same team back in the day. And now I live in Reston, Virginia.
The newest addition to the team, I believe, Tim Kimbrell. I didn't know Tim at all, but when Shakib told me, Joel, you don't understand, Tim is every bit as good as I am, if not better, I had immediate respect for Tim. So with that great introduction, Tim, would you like to tell us about yourself?
Tim Kimbrell, joined Oracle in 2015 for the store team, and I just recently joined the Apex team in February of this year from Norfolk, Virginia, but was born in Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Next up is Tim St. Hilaire, and Tim works closely with Vlad on our cloud services, the integration of Apex in these cloud services, DevOps, support and delivery of that. I do know that Tim lives in Raleigh, North Carolina, and probably has been with the team for 2 or 3 years, I believe. Next up, we have Vlad Uvarov, and Vlad is the manager for many things related to database cloud, schema service, Exadata Express, and the integration and delivery of all that. As well, Vlad has architected a lot of our continuous integration for our build processes, our testing, our translation.
I joined Oracle in 2006, and then I joined the Apex development team 6 years ago. I was born in Riga, Latvia in Europe, and then right now I live in Reston, Virginia.
Me? So I joined Oracle in 1996. I joined the pre-sales team from Oracle Government with Tom Kite and Sergio Lunason, and Mike Hitchwa was in the same group. I was born in this small town in Northeast Ohio called Wadsworth, Ohio, which nobody has probably ever heard of it. And the most notable thing from there are the Wadsworth, Ohio blue tip matches. So if you've ever seen the blue tip matches that you can strike on the ground or strike them on your zipper and they light up, and allegedly these were the matches that Winston Churchill used. I don't know who came up with that one. And I added Excel here because Peter Roganich from Phoenix, he jokes and he says, all I do anymore, I don't do any coding, I do Excel. And I will say that I touch Excel, but the only time I use Excel is when I convert it into a modern, responsive, Oracle database powered application. Right, great. So if you're attending and you might say, wow, half an hour to get through that, but we're only going to do this once and this is our Ask Me Anything. And I thought this is a great introduction from our team to the rest of the global community. And we'll get on with the questions that were asked. And just so you know, going forward for the next office hours, you have the ability to ask questions through the office hours page itself. And so we're going to go through some of those now. David will interrupt us at certain times and take questions that are posed in chat as well. And we'll farm those out to people, but let's get going if we can. And the first one is to Patrick Wolf. Patrick, it would be nice if you could talk about user access control, please.
Sure. Actually, that's a new feature in 18.1, which allows you as a developer that you can create access control as part of the application. So if we speak about access control, that's where you can define roles. Which roles do you have in your application? And you can define that as part of your shared components. And it will be part of your application expert. So if you deploy your application to your production system, everything will be included. It's declarative. It's part of the Create App Wizard. You can create it for existing universal theme applications with the Create Page Wizard, where you have an option to switch to features. So if you want to have a look into it, use the Create App Wizard, have a look at the feature section. There it shows access controls. And in Share Components, you will find a new section called Access Control 2. And there you can define those roles. And if you use the Create App Wizard, it will automatically create a few roles for you, will set everything up for you. And I think that's a super start to get going.
Okay, thanks for that, Patrick.
There was a quick question about how does it compare and contrast with authorization schemes. Actually, you will still use authorization schemes. It will just, access control is really just the roles. You define those roles, and then you will use authorization schemes to check against those roles. So nothing has changed.
But the thing I'll add to this as well, when you use access control from the Create Application Wizard, or you add the feature, is it's also declarative. So so you can create an authorization scheme and declaratively reference these roles that you define. I don't know if this would be awkward, but if at any time somebody wants to share their screen when answering a question, I think that's possible. No? Oh, David just said no. Sorry. Okay. Next up is Chaitanya. Somebody asked, how can I implement an approval process in Apex? And Chaitanya, you should unmute, please.
Yeah, I did unmute, Joel. Thanks. So how can I implement an approval process in Apex? The first thing that we need to understand here is that this is not pre-built into Oracle Apex at the moment. Like, there are no workflow libraries that come as part of Apex. However, the solution is pretty simple. You have two options. One is if you're looking for an advanced kind of workflow implementation or approval process, you can make use of any open source libraries. For example, something like PL Flow, which is built using PL SQL, complete workflow automation. Or else if you're looking for any simple solution, something like, for example, you can create something like a form on a table, a staging table, for example, and then let the user input the data, and this data is captured, inserted into your table. And also on the page, you can create a process, a send email process after the DML, so that the email is sent to the approver, and the email, the body HTML would include a link for the approver, which would fetch the data from the table, as well as it will also have approve and decline buttons, something like that. And once the approver would click the approve or decline buttons, the further actions would happen. Either it can send an email, or and at the same time, it would also update the staging table with the relevant records like declined or approved. So such kind of simple solutions you can directly make in Apex, but not the advanced ones. With the advanced ones, it is recommended to use open source libraries.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Chaitanya. So we have incoming a new hot question, David. That's not from one already asked in advance. Take it away, David.
So I just have to unmute myself. So the question is that in Apex 5.1.4, we had a mobile user interface, and that has been removed. Will it be coming back, etc.? And either Shakib or Mark, if you'd like to answer that, please.
Sure, I can take that one, David. So the question is about jQuery mobile user interface that's now been deprecated. It's going to be marked as desupported for future releases where you won't be able to run your jQuery mobile apps going forward. In 18.1, you can still run your jQuery mobile applications just fine. And the reason why we're moving away from this is because there are compatibility issues with jQuery 3, which the latest version of Jet kind of requires. So there's some changes here, but also throughout this entire time, right? Like since jQuery mobile first came out, it hasn't really been updated for a long time. And now we're in a place where responsive design and universal theme can really provide a better experience for mobile devices anyway. And we talked to a number of customers. We asked at a number of conferences, what are you using to build mobile apps? And people would say, you know, like 80% of the room would raise their hand and say they're using universal theme to build mobile components, or mobile apps. So that's what we're focusing on. jQuery mobile will be desupported in future releases. Right now, you can still run your applications, but this is really a good opportunity for you to go to 18.1 and migrate your jQuery mobile apps over to universal theme. I believe I do have an office hour session on that as well. So, yeah.
Perfect. Thanks, Shakib. Next up, sorry, Shakib, you might as well leave yourself unmuted. Will Oracle Jet, and for those who don't know, Oracle Jet is the open source JavaScript extension toolkit provided by Oracle. And the question to Shakib is, will Oracle Jet replace the universal theme?
So when I first saw this question, it was a little bit confusing because I always think of Jet as this toolkit that provides a number of components, right? It provides charts, it provides these widgets that you could use. It provides like, for example, in Apex 18.1, we use it for the autocomplete item type, right? And all of the charts in Apex are based on Jet. But Jet is not really designed, at least we don't see it as a UI framework, right? We see it more as a number of components. So universal theme is not going anywhere. The simple answer to this is universal theme will not be replaced by Oracle Jet. We plan to invest a whole lot more in universal theme to make it more capable to work on more mobile devices, to do all sorts of really cool things. So the simple answer is no, it will not replace universal theme.
Awesome. Thanks, Shakib. Next up is Mark Ziefs. Mark, is there a demo on how to install OC4J for Apex to enable PDF report printing? Mark, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. I thought I wasn't muted, sorry. So no, OC4J is no longer supported. OC4J, together with a component called FOP.war, was part of Apex up until Apex 4.2. It got removed in Apex 5.0. So this configuration does no longer exist. What you would do today with Apex 5, 5.1, 18.1 is using either ORDS for printing, Oracle REST Data Services, or via Publisher. And if you're using ORDS, then the whole configuration is a lot easier than it used to be. You just install ORDS, and then most printing can go straight through ORDS without that round trip that we had in the past. You can also configure ORDS in a similar fashion to what you would have used to do with OC4J and FOP, having it as a back-end print server. And of course, you can also use via Publisher. We do have a white paper on our OTN page. I'm going to paste it into the chat, Zoom chat, group chat. It's there now. That talks about that in more detail. It talks about the different scenarios, how to configure ORDS for printing, how to configure via Publisher for printing, and also how to configure ORDS if you want to use our print APIs, which requires a few additional steps.
Perfect. Thanks, Mark. I just want to point out, I saw at one point we were at 132 participants, and I know Dennis Savenko said, gee, you know, when we were at 30, this might be the most well-attended office hours ever. This clearly is the most well-attended office hours. So thank you. I'm all about crushing it. Next time we'll get 300, but thanks to everyone for joining today. This is great. We're going to continue, but I just wanted to point that we've crushed this. Okay. Dr. Neumüller, putting you on the spot, can you give me steps to set up two-factor verification with Gmail using Apex 514? That's fascinating. Good luck with that, Christian. Take it away, please.
Looks like I'm unmuted now. So it's always difficult to get enough information in a short question. When I first read this, I was confused because why would you use Apex to set up two-factor verification with Gmail? You can do it in your browser. But apparently that's not what this person meant to ask. So there are ways in Apex 18.1 to use Google authentication with the social sign-in authentication scheme. There are also ways in Apex 504, you could create a custom plugin, and I think there's also one out there on GitHub by Richard Martens, if I'm not mistaken. So that can be used to have OAuth authentication with Google. I'm not sure if this already implements two-factor verification, but if not, you can implement the second leg in Apex. Maybe as an explanation, what is two-factor verification? It's, let's say you have a normal login screen, you enter your username and password. That's the first factor. And a two-factor verification asks you another question, and that's the second leg. So what you can do in Apex, for example, and that's a general pattern. It's not related to Google or auth. You can create a second page that you redirect to from the login page, and then you ask a second question there. And in your post-authentication procedure, you, for example, send an email or a text message to the user and give them some secret key that they can enter on this page. And then you have implemented two-factor verification. I hope that helped.
Yeah, thanks, Christian. To the person who did ask this, if you have a more detailed question, just contact me on Twitter, and we can try and discuss this later. Although, to take away what Christian said, though, this problem becomes, I would think, easier in Apex 18.1 than Apex 5.14. Okay, I'm going to move right along. So, Christina, have you thought about upgrading the query builder to be on par with SQL Developer?
Yeah, so answer to that question, with the great features that we've been working with, we didn't have time to enhance SQL Workshop, but our plan is actually provide a good query builder as good as SQL Developer from the builder, as well as existing SQL Workshop to transition to be a SQL Developer over web. So that's that's the plan on our plate.
Awesome. Thanks, Christina.
Sure.
Next up, David Peak. Is it possible to share more demos on customizing the themes/templates out on YouTube?
So I'm responsible for doing the majority of the videos that are out there, and I very much welcome anybody putting in the chat right now, in fact, what sort of videos they want. So just put video dash and then the topic that you would like covered, and we will try and get to them as quickly as we can. So please give us any ideas on what you think would be useful for a video for the rest of the community to watch.
Yeah, I'll actually just augment this a little bit. Is we work on writing other applications in the company, real Apex applications. And I can take the UI so far, and then I'll ask Shakib to come and help me make it look great. And Shakib usually says, no problem, give me credentials and I'll fix it. And I always refuse because I want to see what he does. I don't have an eye for the detail, but Shakib knows the universal theme inside and out. And I learned so much by watching him. And so maybe that's an idea for a video, is take an app and see what Shakib does. And then I mimic it. And now I'm a user experience expert now. Okay, next up for Karsten Zarski. Do you have any suggestion for defining a RESTful web service to save an image or file? So this sounds not even like consuming it from Apex, but defining it. Karsten? And Karsten, you're not unmuted.
Go, Karsten.
Now it's working. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes.
It's actually not really an Apex question, by the way, because when we are defining a RESTful service to save an image or file, I'm assuming into a database table for now. That means saving from PHP, .NET, Apex, whatever technology, right? And so the question is, how could we define such a RESTful web service? And before explaining this into the very detail, I would just like to refer each of you to a blog posting from Jeff Smith, the product manager from Orts, and I will now paste it into the chat. And that blog posting just describes step by step how such a RESTful service can be created using SQL Developer. Another alternative would be to use the new REST workshop in 18.1, which have some different screens. You would declare the RESTful service using the browser, but the steps are pretty much the same, right? And so that would be the answer if you have more detailed questions, and if it's about how should the table look like, I have some more special requirements, I think just post it into the OTN forum. We are monitoring this, and whenever it gets into more detail, that's a great place to discuss this further.
Or also the Slack channels on apex.world too, right? Okay, thanks, Karsten. Next up, back to Christian. Apex iframes. I don't know if there's such a thing as an Apex iframe. Apex iframes works fine on Internet Explorer 11. However, it produces errors on Chrome and Firefox. Any browser settings that can be changed? Christian?
Yeah, that's a difficult one too. I think the person who asked this question will have to use the browser developer tools to see if there are any errors. At this point, it's not quite sure if this person wants to show an Apex page in an iframe in some totally different application, or if the iframe is within Apex. There are few issues with Internet Explorer 11 that make it different than Chrome and Firefox. First, it's an older browser version, so if the site that if one of the sites is using let's say content security policy, then it might not be supported in IE, and therefore it shows fine because that's the default for content security policy. And in Chrome and Firefox, this policy kicks in, and that's why you don't see anything. It could also be some JavaScript issue. It's not quite sure at this point. But if this person is online, and if you have more questions, then please send them to us via email or in the group chat or however.
Awesome. Thanks, Christian. We have a hot incoming question from Izzy saying, hi, are there any future plans to improve the integration between Apex and eBusiness Suite? And we're glad you asked. That's part of the reason why we're here at Oracle headquarters is we had meetings yesterday with the eBusiness Suite executive office and other people on the EBS team. And we are full steam ahead there in terms of not only improving the integration and setup, but also starter solutions and guides for people to integrate and use Apex to extend EBS. So that's precisely one of the reasons why we're here at Oracle HQ. Great question. Next one for Michael Hitra. Mike, what are the top 5 Apex best practices, please? And Mike, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Yes. The best practices I have are to first start with a good data model. So if you model your database correctly, you use index your foreign keys, you name your constraints, you use declarative referential integrity, you create who columns to maintain via triggers to track last updates, etc. That can really help build an application. As well, when you expose this application to, say, REST or whatnot, you want to keep the smarts in the database, not in the application. So good data model is always a good place to start. The second advice is to use declarative Apex features. The idea is to do it in no code when you can do it that way. Do it in low code if you can't do it in no code, and only write actual code when you need to. And that allows you to make the application more maintainable, allows you to share it with other developers and transition the workload to others more elegantly, etc. The third advice I have is to use a universal theme. It maintains future compatibilities with the UIs that you might want to come up with. It optimizes responsiveness for mobile and many other things. Of course, you can customize it, and it'd be great that Shakib and others create additional videos on how to style a universal theme to make it look very different, which it can be done. And then number 4 is to keep the UI simple and clear. I personally like to use the floating labels. You make sure you name your columns correctly, put proper format masks on your fields, choose the right style tabs. Maybe no tabs works for you, maybe tabs on the left, maybe tabs on the top, but just to keep it simple is the advice on the user interface. Understanding that a lot of people don't want to spend time learning how to use your app. They just want to do whatever your app's supposed to do. And then the last thing I have is to test your SQL outside of your app. So when you're coding applications, chances are if it's going to be slow, people aren't going to like it. And the top reason for an application being slow is bad SQL or PL SQL. And so you can test that outside the context of your Apex app, make sure it's fast, and then you're pretty much guaranteed it will work inside. And I will post my top 5 into the chat.
Outstanding, Mike. Thank you. That's advice from the person who writes more Apex applications than probably anybody on the planet. Excellent. Karsten, another hot one for you. I'm having trouble setting up OAuth 1.a authentication to certain APIs. Do you have any suggestions? And Karsten, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Okay, now I'm unmuted. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I had to Google it a bit to get familiar with this, what zero APIs actually mean. And I will here just provide a generic answer to that question. I'm happy to discuss that later on, to go into the details. So for the person who asked that question, drop me an email, start a forum thread, and we might get into a more detailed discussion about that. But what I've learned from blog postings and forums threads I found on the internet is that this authentication is a typical browser redirect based authentication. So like, when you have that sign in with Facebook, sign in with Twitter, you're logging into that application, then you are redirected to the Twitter, Facebook, whatever page. And then you log in, you authenticate the application, and then you're redirected back. So, and when we are now using a REST API in Application Express, we currently, Apex 18, we currently support basic authentication, and we support OAuth 2 client credentials flow, and that client credentials flow is not redirect based. So whenever your API is protected by an authentication flow which is not redirect based, so where Apex simply sends credentials to the API and gets a token back, your chances are pretty good to get it working right out of the box in Apex. In this case, where it is redirect based, we have to do it manually. So this would require some amount of manual work. Apex, which is on the server, would need to act as a browser. So the Apex database would need to process the redirections. That can be done, but it's a manual effort. And to get into the details of this, I think that's way too much for this office hours format. That's the place where just drop me a note, drop me an email, open a forum thread, and we can discuss that offline later on.
Perfect, Carsten. Thank you. We have 5 minutes, so I'm going to try to go quickly here. How do I test performance of an Apex application? There's many ways you can do this. Ultimately, what you want to do is use some technology like JMeter, or there's other frameworks that you can use that simulate load against an Apex application. And you want to go through a natural path with a proper amount of think time, but also concurrency as well. What people mistakenly do is they'll try to request the same page over and over and over and over again and do it with 100 threads, and that doesn't represent real world usage, and it would actually mask performance issues because you're just executing the same query repeatedly. So what you want to do, and again, internally we'll use things like JMeter to simulate the load, and this is an open source utility, and then spawn multiple threads using JMeter, and you especially want to monitor the database performance. So then on the back end, you would look at an active workload repository report for that specific time period and analyze where there were any performance bottlenecks. In general, and I see this time and time and time again, just even the other days, I think even Stephen Forrestine said, hey, the filter on the interactive report in Apex is slow for one app and not another, and it's almost always related to the code that you've added in your application. So if you identify a slow page and you want to see where the slowness occurs, just run the page and debug. We put a nice bar chart, and it will be immediately obvious where the performance issues lie. Okay, next one to Hillary Farrell. What would be the most elegant way to format currencies calculated dynamically and user entered?
Sure. So to handle dynamically, you'd be basically looking at using some JavaScript, and an option would be to have a dynamic action on your page that handles it based upon the entering of text in the text field. Have that as a display only item next to the actual input field that the user is entering text. Again, using something like that does introduce overhead on your side that you have to maintain that additional JavaScript code, ensuring that it's handling the various currency symbols and formatting. But what you can take advantage of is the use of the format mask attribute that's available on items and obviously on report columns as well for the rendering of the values. So there are, when I did a quick Google, there are various JavaScript libraries out there, a couple of which seem quite dated, so I'd be reluctant to be recommending them as such, but there are a couple of options out there if you really wanted to apply your own mask plugin as such.
Awesome. Thanks, Hillary. So let's just take two more questions because we're running quickly out of time. I don't want to go too far over. The next one is to Jason. Jason Straub, how do you upgrade to Apex 18.1 in an Amazon RDS environment with no access to sysdba? And Jason, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
I was waiting to be unmuted. But I can answer this very quickly, and that is, you can't. Next question. No, but I guess to expand on this a little bit, this is the difference between being on a fully managed cloud service or being on an unmanaged service. And it's really no different for Oracle Cloud Services, for example, our database schema service or our Exadata Express Cloud service. You really have to wait for us to put in the pipeline the upgrade to Apex 18.1. Now, we also have the database cloud service, which is more of an unmanaged service. It's not completely unmanaged. We do provide tooling for patching and things like that. But on a system like that, where you have complete full control sysdba access, you could theoretically upgrade out of band to Apex 18.1, and we do provide instructions before we actually provide the tooling to upgrade to Apex 18.1. So the short answer is on Amazon RDS, you're kind of up to, you're up to whenever they can get it upgraded for you.
Thanks, Jason. I will augment this. There was a gentleman who I met at the Apex Alpha Adria conference, and he asked as well, hey, can you guys talk to Amazon to have them uptake the newer versions of Apex sooner? Lo and behold, at the Great Lakes Oracle Conference in April or May, I actually met the product manager for RDS. I asked him this very same question, and we have an email dialogue, and I want to work with these guys to get them to uptake newer versions of Apex sooner.
All right.
Okay, last question. Shakib, what's the best way to adopt universal theme, UT theme, that's redundant, adopt universal theme properly for custom items and regions, such as core CSS styles, to make select to plugin look and feel native? And just for the record, that redundancy, I think, is on us. Shakib?
Sure. So I'll answer this in two parts. The first thing is, how do you use universal theme to kind of style your own custom widgets or custom components, right? So there's a number of classes and styles that we use throughout, but in the universal theme sample app, we document some of these classes you can use generically, right? So all the colors, we have like a generic color classes you can use, and those are tied into theme roller. We plan to extend the universal theme sample app to provide more of these utility classes that we have that you can use all throughout when you're building any kind of widget or component. And we're very close. We might even refresh the app sometime this week with a few more pages on that. The next thing, so let's say you want to take a plugin that already exists, kind of like a select to the JavaScript library that gives you that nice select list, and you want to make that fit into universal theme. Now, that's a little bit more complicated because there's a lot of styles that select to provides to override how exactly it looks, the drop down, the text, the search field. So to get it one-to-one with universal theme might require a lot of work, but there are some classes that we use that were introduced in Apex 18.1 for form items, for form elements that make it easier to absorb some of the universal theme styles. So those are classes like apex-item-text or apex item wrapper. So if you inspect element on any of these pages, you'll see a lot of these standardized classes being used to format the way that these items look. And I think you should expect to see documentation for these kinds of customizations in the universal theme app going forward. So I hope that helps.
Awesome. Thanks, Shakib. I hate to say it. I'm just going to fast forward here, and we're going to have to wrap things up. I just want once again to show our schedule. So in 2 weeks, in 2 weeks, Mark Ziefs will be having an office hours on the Apex 18.1 new features. And this will be a combination of an overview of Apex 18.1 features, but you can also ask questions on this as well, both in advance on the office hours page and then live during the office hours. And that happens on July 12th. And like I said at the beginning, if anyone has any suggestions or things you want this to be done differently, or other different topics or time zones we should do this in, please suggest it at any time. So with that said, I think this is going to be a wrap. As I put in the chat, I could not be just, I'm elated how many people showed up for this, and once again, the global Apex community delivers. So thank you for your support, and thank you for attending today, and we'll talk to you again in 2 weeks' time. Thanks, everyone. I wish you a great day. Bye.